Yeah, my connection's kind of acting weird tonight. Hello, everyone. How you doing? This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to start a new paper. We're going to start paper 27, Ministry of the Primary Supernifem, and this is a fairly short paper. It's not very long, so it won't take us probably 1 or 2 meetings at most to get through this. We might even get through it in a meeting. I'm not sure. So let's say a quick prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight to study your wonderful revelation to us. Pray you open our hearts and minds that we might be ready for this tonight and share it with our friends and families. And thank you for the many people that join us and listen to us at home and listen to us later. And thank you for this group that they participate and we learn from each other and share with each other. It's a lot of fun. But thank you. We give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 All right.
Jane, do you hear that? He's breaking up.
It's
Ministry of the Primary Supernifem. Am I still coming through to everyone?
Yes, you're coming through fine now.
Breaking up
now it's
again?
good. Yes.
Supernifem are the supernal servants of the deities on the eternal isle of paradise. Never have they been known to depart from the paths of light and righteousness. The roll calls are complete from eternity, not one of them. Come on. Oops, we just. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Now
I can.
Okay.
Just temporarily unmuted. That's an old picture of us that's on there, so it must be a, yeah. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Diane. Okay. Let's see. I noticed Diane has her mic muted.
Primary Supernifem are the supernal servants of the deities on the eternal isle of paradise. Never have they been known to depart from the paths of light and righteousness. The roll calls are complete. From eternity, the roll calls are complete. From eternity, not one of this magnificent host has been lost. These high supernifem are perfect beings, supreme in perfection, but they are not absonite, neither are they absolute. Being of the essence of perfection, these children of the infinite spirit work interchangeably and at will in all phases of their manifold duties. They do not function extensively outside paradise, though they do participate in the various millennium gatherings and group reunions of the central universe. They also go forth as special messengers of the deities, and in large numbers they ascend to become technical advisors.
Okay, very good. Made it all the way through it, so we might be all right. Okay, primary supernifem. Get some interesting stuff in this first paragraph. First of all, none of them have ever gone into rebellion in the history of supernifem. Okay, primary supernifem. And these are created perfect beings by the infinite spirit. Now, what are they saying there? Let me show you what the difference of what they're saying here in this picture. See how this picture has the infinite spirit in it? Well, the primary supernifem is this group over here, all right? And this group over here is created directly from the infinite spirit itself. Unlike the secondary supernifem, which are created by the master spirits, and then the tertiary supernifem, who are created by the spirits of the circuit. All right. Now, I say that created, they're created in conjunction with the infinite spirit and the master spirit, or in conjunction with the infinite spirit and the spirit of the circuit. So that's what they're talking about in this first paragraph when they say that they're directly created from the infinite spirit himself, right? Okay. They're also perfect beings. They are created perfect. Then they call it supreme imperfection. And what they make sure that we understand is they're perfect, but they're not an absonite being like a Havana pilgrim. And they're not a absolute being like the seven absolutes. Okay, so they're created perfect servants of the deities themselves. All right. And they can work interchangeably in any of the seven roles that the supernifem work in. Okay, and we'll see these seven roles in just a minute. They normally don't go out in great numbers into the super universes. Now, there's exceptions to this, and this is what we're going to talk about for just a second. They go forth as special messengers, all right, and they go forth as technical advisors. Now, what are they talking about technical advisors here? What they're saying is they go out whenever a planet goes into rebellion, like ours did. They send out a primary supernifem who takes charge of all the angelic creatures on that planet. Okay, so that's how they become the technical advisors. So technically, they're in charge while we're still in rebellion, like we are right now on this planet. There's a primary supernifem that all the angelic corps that come and go to this planet answers to. Okay. And that's the reason being it's so important is because they are perfect. All the beings of the planet that are support personnel, like the angelic corps, gets perfect information all the time as to what should be going on in the planet, even though we're in a rebellious state. Make sense? So that's why that's so important.
I had a question, Roger.
Yeah.
Where they say, never have they been known to depart from the paths of light. What is that? How do they interpret that? The paths of light.
What they're talking about is they never depart from the will of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit, ever, on any circumstance. So when they do something, you can pretty much take it to the bank that whatever they tell us or whatever they teach us or any of these things are just like it's coming from the deities themselves.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
All right.
And Roger, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Roger.
Are the if a planet goes into rebellion, then they act as technical advisors.
Yes.
Do they actually get stationed on that planet?
Yeah, for the duration of the time we're in rebellion. Yeah, they do.
So we have one.
We have one right now. We've had two. We're in our second one right now. And they're going to tell us in this paper a little bit later.
Okay, and then one other question.
Yeah.
Do they work solo?
No,
or in couples?
You know, that's a good question, Rodney. And honestly, I do not know. I would assume it would be a couple because all of the, that's weird, Gary.
You're on two.
Hey, Gary, we see you.
You got two connections. You
One
get the one.
picture.
This is my shy twin.
Yeah, you're gonna have to mute one of them because it's given feedback.
I'm trying to fix it. I thought I had it fixed, but I don't.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we see you in the picture now, but the other one is giving us feedback.
Well, I've got two and the computer's gone.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I have a split mind.
Okay.
I'm going to leave you on this other.
Personality.
All right. What you were saying, Rodney, is normally all supernifem, all seraphim, all the angelic corps always works in pairs, right? So I would assume it would be a pair of angels, right? But I can't say that for a fact because I don't remember reading that that's the case.
I just was curious
Yeah.
if these guys are special and they don't have to work in pairs.
Yeah. No, I do not know.
Okay.
But you know, I really
Maybe
don't.
we'll find out.
Yeah, maybe we'll find out later. I don't remember reading it though. All right. You know, it's always, you know, when they say that the seraphim, all ranks of the seraphim all work in pairs, I just assume all of them would, you know, because they have not a positive and negative, but a dominant and a retiring, right, in the pair. So you'd need both of them to get the full circle, right? All right. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. Jane, you're up next, I believe.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay. Primary supernaphim are also placed in command of the seraphic host ministering on worlds isolated because of rebellion. When a paradise son is bestowed upon such a world, completes his mission, ascends to the universal Father, is accepted, and returns as the accredited deliverer of this isolated world, a primary supernaphim is always designated by the chiefs of assignments to assume command of the ministering spirits on duty in the newly reclaimed sphere. Supernaphim in this special service are periodically rotated. On Urantia, the present chief of Seraphim is the second of this order to be on duty since the times of the bestowal of Christ Michael.
Okay, so we've had two different heads, right? The question is it two different pairs or two individuals? I don't know, right? That's what Rodney was asking. Okay, it sounds like they're talking about an individual.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
But whenever you say supernaphim, the term supernaphim itself is a plural. Okay, so that's what makes me think it would be two angels, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again, I'm sure. So,
did we study somewhere that they always work in twos?
Oh, they always work in pairs. Because why is it they work in pairs? Because they have to recharge through the circuit, right? One always has to be on duty. So when one is recharging, the other one is on duty. So you're never without a angel all the time. Okay, and I would assume it would be the same thing for the supernaphim.
Isn't
right?
there a negative and a positive?
Well, like I said, negative and positive. It's more a dominant and retiring.
Okay.
Right. So there's one of the two on the pair is always a dominant one, and the other is a retiring. Okay. All right, Rodney, would you take the next paragraph and the 7 things there?
Yes. From eternity, the primary supernaphim have served on the Isle of Light and have gone forth on missions of leadership to the worlds of space. But they have functioned as now classified only since the arrival on Paradise of the Havana pilgrims of time. These high angels now minister chiefly in the following 7 orders of service. 1, conductors of worship. 2, masters of philosophy. 3, custodians of knowledge. 4, directors of conduct. 5, interpreters of ethics. 6, chiefs of assignment. And 7, instigators of rest.
Okay, and you're going to notice in this list that the paragraphs coming after this is just, they're going to tell them about them just the opposite. Okay, and there's a reason they do that. All right. The point I want to make out of this paragraph, though, that you notice it says only since the arrival on Paradise of the and of Havona, the pilgrims of time, right? In other words, they have functioned as these orders only since the very first Grand Fonda landed on Havona. So these orders have functioned in this capacity only since then. Before that, the primary Supernafim just worked on Paradise and worked only as messengers and in the service of the three deities. Okay. So
Roger, it wasn't an editorial mistake, right? The way it's categorized. Okay.
No, they did that on purpose, and we're going to see this. So we go down here.
Okay.
There's a list of them here. All right. And you're going to notice the very first one here is what? Instigators of rest, right? And instigators of rest is the seventh one down here on the bottom, right? You see that? So they're going to tell us about them just opposite. And there's a reason they do that, because the last thing they talk about is the conductors of worship in this section. Okay. And so what they're doing is they're setting you up for the progression of how we come to know these angels. Okay.
Does that have anything to do with the Havona circuits from the 7th to the 1st?
It has some to do with the Havona circuits. It has more to do with when we get to Paradise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's see here. Pam, would you take the next one?
Not until the ascending pilgrims actually attain paradise residence do they come under the direct influence of the Supernafim.
Supernafim, yeah.
And then they pass through a training experience under the direction of these angels in the reverse order of their naming. This is, you enter upon your paradise career under the tutelage of the instigators of rest, and after successive seasons with the intervening orders, finish this training period with the conductors of worship. Thereupon are you ready to begin the endless career of a finaliter.
See what they're talking about? They just told us that they're going to teach us about it just in reverse order, because that's the way we come to know them, right? And that's the way we'll use these angels. Okay. Number one, the instigators of rest. Millie, how you doing tonight? Would you take the next one?
I'd rather just listen tonight, please.
Oh, that would be fine. Gary, would you take the next one?
Okay, where are we at? I'm
the very first paragraph under section 1, the instigators of rest.
okay. The instigators of rest are the inspectors of paradise who go forth from the central island of the inner circle of Havona, there to collaborate with their colleagues, the complements of rest of the second order of Supernafim. The one essential to the enjoyment of paradise is rest, divine rest. And these instigators of rest are the final instructors who make already the pilgrimage of time for their introduction to eternity. They begin their work on the final attainment circle of the central universe and continue it when the pilgrims awake from the last transition sleep, the slumber which guarantees a creature of space into the realm of the eternal.
Okay, so that's graduates of space into the eternal realm. Okay, and what they're talking about is the last rest you take when you finish that, when you're getting ready to finish the very last circuit, which is circuit number 1, right? When you get ready to leave there and actually go to paradise to become a paradise citizen, right? That's when you take that divine rest, the last rest. And they're going to talk about what the different types of rest we go through in the next paragraph. So let's just keep going to the next paragraph. The sevenfold nature of rest. Tim, would you take the next one, please?
Rest is of a sevenfold nature. There is the rest of sleep and of play. In the lower life orders, discovery in the higher beings in worship, and the highest type of spirit personalities. There is also the normal rest of energy intake, the recharging of beings with physical or spiritual energy. And then there is the transient sleep, the unconscious slumber when in seraphim. When in passage from one spirit to another, entirely different from all of these, is the deep sleep of metamorphosis, the transition rest, from one stage of being to another, from one life to another, from one state of existence to another. The sleep which ever attends transition from actual universe status in contrast to evolution through various stages of any one status. They're not talking about reincarnation, right? When they say life to
No,
life,
they're not.
Right?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Okay. First, they start us out talking about regular sleep, right? You get rest when you sleep. You also rest when you play. Okay. So if you're doing something you're enjoying, you're getting rest from that also. Okay. So it's important to understand that, because we forget about that one. We know we rest when we sleep, but we don't realize we rest when we play also. Okay. And then they go on to tell us, we'll discover about the higher beings who discover that worship itself is the highest type of rest for a spirit personality. Okay. All right. And then they talk about there's also another type of rest, which is just energy intake. Who would do that kind of rest, you think?
Master physical controllers, or?
No, the guardian angels.
Okay.
Think about that. Your guardian angels have to rest to get an energy intake. So that's why they work in pairs. As one is resting, the other is working, right? Oh, okay. And there's two types of rest that includes recharging physical beings, all right, which is food and that sort of thing. And then there's rest for spiritual energy, and that's the type of rest that the angels would get, right? All right, so these are the different types of rest, all right? Then they talk about the initial transit sleep, and this is what they call unconscious slumber, when we're in seraphim for the first time, when we go from one sphere to another. And that would also include when we get to the mansion worlds, if we have to move from one sphere to another, we would have a unconscious rest during the time we're in seraphim to transport. Makes sense? Because they don't want you moving around when you're in seraphim, right? So you'd go to sleep, all right? And it talks about how all of these are a different type of sleep than the metamorphosis or the transition sleep, when you go from one stage of being to another. What are they talking about there?
Life after life?
Well, Urantia, when you go up the Urantia scale, when you go from mansion world number 1 to mansion world number 2, you do go through a metamorphosis, don't you? You go from the first stage Urantia being to a second stage Urantia being. And during that transition, they tweak your body and everything, so you will become a second stage transition person, right? And that happens again and again as you go through the different stages. Now, there's also a transition rest when you go from Urantia being to the first stage spirit, right? Because you get a totally new body when you go from Urantia to a first stage spirit, okay? So you go back to sleep again. When you wake up, you got a whole new type of being and a whole new body and everything else, right? All right. And then it talks about these transitions from actual universe status are different than, in contrast to evolution through various stages from one to another. So it depends on what you're doing, how much of a transition this will be, whether it will just be evolution or a transition. Makes sense?
So, hey, Roger.
Yeah.
In reference to the life after life, it would be like the first mansion world. And then at least by the second one, you would get a new body that would be tweaked, like you're talking about.
Well, you don't get a new body on the mansion world. You keep the same body.
Correct.
All right, all the way up to you become a spirit being, but they tweak that body each time you go up on higher levels. So you can think of it more like a dimensional tweaking, right? Because as you go higher, you go to a different type of dimension of reality.
Kind of like a different sphere?
So like a different sphere,
okay.
Or a different, if you think about it, they talk about how there's different types of reality occupying the same space. And if you think about it, that's true on this planet too, because we have human beings in the physical form and the finite beings, right? We also have Urantia beings on this planet in the Urantia form that we can't see, right? We also have what? Our guardian angels. That's a whole different form they have, and they're walking around on this planet just like we are, or moving on this planet just like we are. So we have different dimensions of being. And if you think about it, the Urantia life going through the mansion worlds is in essence the same type of thing, right? Because you're going higher and higher and higher as you progress, right? And as you progress, you're able to see more and more beings also, because they will be in that dimension that you're in. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go on. Yeah, Jane, go ahead.
Just one quick question.
Sure.
But is everybody on mention word number 1 on the same level? Like, are
Yes.
they Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They all have the same Urantia bodies. They all have the same abilities to see beings and that sort of thing. Now,
it's kind of like Earth.
Yeah, kind of like Earth, right? You'd see everything in that dimension. Okay. Now, the difference is this: in Urantia world number 1, the physical controllers or the mechanical controllers occasionally expand the view of the Urantia beings so they can see different levels of spiritual and physical beings for special events. Okay. So if, for instance, if Jesus came to the first mansion world to see everyone, they would expand your Urantia vision so that you could see him, because he's what? He's a spiritual being. Make sense? He wouldn't be somebody that you just see. He could be in the room with you and you wouldn't even know he's there, right? Because he's got a spiritual body. Make sense?
Thank you. Yes. Thank
so
you.
In mansion world number 1, they're able to let you view these beings occasionally in special events and occasions. Okay, so that's something we have to look forward to. All right. Okay.
Roger?
Yeah.
In the past, you've talked about how perhaps some beings will not be able to recognize God the Father or the Son or the Holy Spirit. Wouldn't that sort of be in the same vicinity that if Christ were to come, if you didn't have that ability to recognize him, right, you would feel him.
You would sense that he was there, but you wouldn't see him.
Okay.
Right? That's the thing. Now, the difference too, though, when you sense the deities and you stand before the deities, they actually say, and it says this, it says, you will stand before and see the face of God. Now, what they're talking about there, I'm not sure, because they say that you really don't see him with your eyes, you see him with your existence or your soul.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I would think of it would be more like a sensing or a knowing that he is in front of you and there. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's different than just regular eyesight. That's all I can say about it.
Recording in progress.
Okay. That's weird. We got Gary back in 2 places again. Okay. So it probably said recording for just so that Gary knew that it was recording. Dear, I think you're up again.
Yeah, it was me. I'm sorry. I thought I had it fixed, but I'm sorry.
But the last metamorphic sleep is something more than those previous transition slumbers, which have marked the successive status attainments of the ascendant career. Thereby do the creatures of time and space traverse the innermost margins of the temporal and the spatial to attain residential status in the timeless and spaceless abodes of paradise. The instigators and the complements of rest are just as essential to this transcending metamorphosis as are the seraphim and associated beings to the mortal creature's survival of death.
Now, I think that would be pretty important, wouldn't you? So it's akin to when you die and you wake up on the mansion worlds, right? So this last metamorphic sleep, the instigators of rest put you in, and they actually, the instigators of rest travel with the transport seraphim, supernaphim, to paradise with you. You know, this is the only trip that you take other than, you know, trips to paradise to see things. But this is the only trip you will take where a supernaphim will be in seraphim or in supernaphim that's transporting you. This instigator of rest will be in that angel with you. Okay, so this last metamorphosis into a paradise citizen is pretty different than all the rest. Okay, and that's the point they're trying to make. So you go from being on residential status in the time-space dimension, which would be the 7 super universes in Havona, right? And you go from that time-space dimension to what? Paradise, which is different than everything else, right? So paradise being timeless and spaceless, you go into a dimension that's just totally different than anything you've ever experienced, okay? So it's a big jump, any way you look at it. And this prepares you for becoming a phenologer, right? Yeah, Rodney, did you have something to say?
Well, I just can't wrap my mind around something being spaceless.
I know. That is just outside the human concepts, right?
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. All right. But they compare it to our very first transition from death to Urantia. Notice that? It's much like going from being a mortal to a Urantia being. So when we make that last transition from a spirit, which we're already, what, a 5th stage spirit before this happens, we go from 5th stage to 6th stage when we get to paradise. So, you know, going from one dimension to another and then one reality to another apparently is a bigger step than any of them we've taken before, right? Because why else would they assign us a being just for that rest, right? Instigator of rest, which is pretty important. All right. Well, let's go on. Jane, would you take the next one?
You enter the rest on the final Havona circuit and are eternally resurrected on paradise. And as you there spiritually repersonalize, you will immediately recognize the instigator of rest who welcomes you to the eternal shores as the very primary supernaphim who produced the final sleep on the innermost circuit of Havona. And you will recall the last grand stretch of faith as you once again made ready to commend the keeping of your identity into the hands of the Universal Father.
So this is pretty special, isn't it? You go to sleep with the instigator of rest next to you. What's the first thing you see when you wake up? The instigator of rest that transported with you to bring you back conscious again. So it's pretty important, right? And that's the picture of it. All right. Rodney, would you take the next one?
The last rest of time has been enjoyed. The last transition sleep has been experienced. Now you awake to life everlasting on the shores of the eternal abode. And there shall be no more sleep. The presence of God and his Son are before you, and you are eternally his servants. You have seen his face, and his name is your spirit. There shall be no night there, and they need no light of the sun, for the great source and center gives them light, and they shall live forever and ever. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. There shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things have passed away.
And that's a quote from the Bible, remember?
That was
Okay.
a little bit emotional.
Yeah, yeah, it was. But think of it this way. It says it's here, the presence of God's Son are before you, but it does say right here, you have seen his face, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it says, and his name is in your spirit, which is your thought adjuster, right? So he's part of you and you're part of him at this point. And the source of light of God brightens your way forevermore. Now, interesting thing here too is there shall be no more sleep. Think about that. You will have no need to sleep ever again. That's pretty strange.
Eternal energy.
Eternal energy.
But you'll still rest.
That's right.
Not.
And I'm sure if you hit this Bible comparison, let's hit it real quick, and it'll tell you where all this quote came from down here. In one of these, these are all the quotes from the Bible that they took from this source. So you can look at that at your leisure if you'd like to do that. Okay, let's go on to the second one.
Roger?
Yes.
Can I make a note here?
Yes.
And you refer to it here where it says you have seen his face and his name is your spirit. Is
Right.
your spirit.
Is your spirit.
Is your spirit.
Right.
And we mistakenly had taken this verse and we believed we're going to encounter this when we die, which of course we were very wrong.
Right.
Right? Because this is
this is with us now.
Ultimate. Yes,
Right.
but this is the end. This
Yeah.
is when we've journeyed all the way
All
to
the way
paradise.
to paradise. That's
to
right.
paradise.
But
And when
this is the case right now, though, Jane, within us, right?
it is within us, but unrealized. It's
Unrealized.
not
That's right.
unrealized. So
That's
we
right.
have a long, long way to go before God will say, that his name is in our spirit.
Right. Yeah.
Is that actually then when the line is, he makes all things new?
All things new. Yeah.
Things new.
Well,
To me,
that's applicable right now, Jane. That's applicable when you make the decision that you are a son of God. When you make that commitment.
Correct, but in very small increments.
Very, very small increments. And the other part here, it says, you have seen his face. In essence, you see his face when you make the decision to live your life according to the will of God. Okay?
Yeah, the consecration.
The consecration, that's right. Because you've accepted your thought adjuster as God the Father. You've accepted that thought adjuster as a fragment of God himself, and you've accepted your betrothal to that fragment for fusion in the future, whether it's on this planet or on the mansion worlds, right? So where it says you are eternally his servants, you have seen his face, and his name is your spirit. Those three things can happen the minute you accept God as your father, because you're part of the family of God.
Yes.
Right at that moment. right?
But even here, there is a final consecration.
This is a final
when you appear,
consecration.
you
know,
consecrate your identity.
When I was a Baptist, we used to call it an invitation, right? Remember that? I'm sure if you've ever been in the Baptist church, at the end of every service is an invitation, right?
Yes.
This is what it's talking about right here. It's saying, accept God as your Father, accept Christ. Well, they say Christ is your Savior, but really it's Christ as your God, if you think about it, for us, because we believe that Christ was our creator, right? So the invitation for us is accept the fatherhood of God and accept the brotherhood of man. And in accepting both of those, you're accepting God the Father as your Father and God Jesus as your creator, right? And in doing that, by accepting God the Father, you're accepting the Paradise Trinity, because what happens with the Paradise Trinity? They're inseparable, right? So the invitation is what? Come be part of the family, right? That's what the invitation's about. And that's why you'll never go to a Baptist church and they don't have some kind of invitation. Now they're wanting to you accept the what they say is the fact that Christ died for your sins, but we know that's not true. Okay, we know that Christ came to as sovereign of our universe, right, to do 7 bestowals, but the invitation is still the same. The acceptance is still the same, because you can't get off that first mansion world without accepting Christ as your God. Right. I mean, there's just no way. I'm sorry, but it don't happen that way, right? But that's what they're saying here. You know, you're accepting the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, and you're becoming part of the family. And when you get to this point in paradise and you stand before God, there is no way you can't realize that, you know. I mean, really, that's part of becoming a finaliter. Why do you think they call it a finaliter? Because you made a final decision that will last through all eternity, and there is nothing, just like the Supernifem, there is nothing going to shake your faith away from God. Nothing, right? And that's the way we can feel today, you know, regardless of what happens. You know, so it's not only there, it's here too, right?
Yes.
That's what
never
they
be discouraged.
Never be discouraged, right? That's why you can call it an awakening, right? A new life, a new person, because really you are a new person. You're in a new family. You know, you go from being lost in the world to part of the family, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. Now
awesome.
I preached enough. Okay, let's go on to the Chiefs of Assignment. All right, number 2. Now I've forgotten who read last. Who was?
I did. I think.
I read.
Rodney. Okay. And Pam,
yes, you almost cried, Rodney.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Pam stepped away. Millie's not reading tonight. Gary's the next one.
Okay. This is the group designated from time to time by the chief Superfim. The original pattern angel, to preside over the organization of all 3 orders of these angels: primary, secondary, and tertiary. The Supernifem, as a body, are wholly self-governing and self-regulatory, except for the functions of their mutual chief, the first angel of paradise, who ever presides over all these spirits' personalities. So we've got the paradise angel running everything, and I think he runs 3 groups: the primary, secondary, and tertiary.
You got it. That's the whole thing of this paragraph right there. He assigns everybody, makes sure everybody's got jobs. He regulates everything. So he's the chief kahuna. It's the head kahuna, right? For the angels. All right. So he puts them on assignment on their different jobs. Okay, Tim, would you take the next one?
The angels of assignment have much to do with glorified mortal residents of paradise before they are admitted to the core of the finality. Study and instruction are not the exclusive occupations of paradise arrivals. Service also plays its essential part in the pre-finaliture educational experiences of paradise. And I have observed that when the ascendant mortals have periods of leisure, they invite a
predilection
to fraternize with the reserve corps of the seraphic chiefs of assignment.
Okay, and it's going to tell us why they're in the next paragraph. But notice here it says that study and instructions are not the only thing we do when we get to paradise. We also do what?
Work.
We work. That's right. You do it all the way there, and then you do it when you get there, right? So if you're lazy, you might as well get over it. Yeah, that's right.
I'm beginning to think is a curse.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So look at it this way. Every day when you get up and you got something you have to do, life is good. You know, it does, right? It's a good life.
That's our life.
That's our life. That's it. Okay.
It's mine too.
Matter of fact, I'd say that's our eternity.
Yeah, it is. So the people that get there like to fraternize with the reserve corps of the chiefs of assignment because they're angels and they relate to them really well. Okay. All right. And they're going to tell us about that a little bit in this next paragraph, I believe. All right. So, Diane, I think you're up again.
When you mortal ascenders attain paradise, your societal relationships involve a great deal more than contact with a host of exalted and divine beings and with a familiar multitude of glorified fellow mortals. You must also fraternize with upwards of 3,000 different orders of paradise citizens, with the various groups of the transcendentalers, and with numerous other types of paradise inhabitants, permanent and transient, who have not been revealed on Urantia. After sustained contact with these mighty intellects of paradise, it is very restful to visit with the angelic types of mind. They remind the mortals of time of the seraphim with whom they had such long contact and such refreshing association.
So they're so like-minded like we are, it's refreshing for us to talk to these angels, right? All right. Notice here too, you know, I've said this many times, here you also fraternize with what? Upwards of 3,000, not 300, 3,000 different orders of paradise citizens, okay? But that's not all. You also have the various groups of the transcendentalers. Where are the transcendentalers? They're in Havana, right? The absentite beings. Okay, so we have to deal with those. And then there's various numerous other types of paradise inhabitants, which they haven't even told us about. All right, so.
But at least we can speak their language by then.
We can speak their language by them, but if you have prejudices, you better get over them because you're not going to make it when you get
Hope
to
they're
paradise.
gone by then.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so we have lots and lots of different types of beings we're going to be involved with and be introduced to, right? All right.
I wish they would describe them to us.
Yeah,
You
me
know, it'd be
too.
nice to
Just give us a
kind of give a
taste of them, right? Let me
I
see.
think I said that the last time we read this too.
I think you did too. That's all right. Well, we got 9 more minutes. You want to try to get through one more section, y'all?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Interpreters of ethics. Okay, let's see. Pam, would you take the next one? I'm going to come back to Jane. You're going to get a read twice here real quick. Would you take the next one? The higher you ascend. Unmute though, we could hear you better. I read lips, but not that well.
Right. Okay. The higher you ascend in the scale of life, the more attention must be paid to universe ethics. Ethical awareness is simply the recognition by the individual of the rights inherent in the existence of any and all other individuals. But spiritual ethics far transcends the mortal and even the Urantia concept of personal and group relations. Boy, we should get some of this on Earth.
Yeah, we really need this here, don't we? All right,
Yeah.
so the interpreters of ethics kind of guide us along to make sure we don't, get out of line too bad. Yeah, make a fool of ourselves, right?
It reminds me of when royalty sits at a dinner and they have like 15, 20 forks and knives.
Yeah.
Which one do you pick?
Yeah.
Detail.
We come from barbarianism, so we could just pick food up. All right, let's go on to the next one. Jane, would you take the next one?
Okay. Ethics has been duly taught and adequately learned by the pilgrims of time in their long ascent to the glories of paradise. As the sinward ascending career has unfolded from the nativity worlds of space, the ascenders have continued to add group after group to their ever widening circle of universe associates. Every new group of colleagues met with adds one more level of ethics to be recognized and complied with, until by the time the mortals of ascent reach paradise, they really need someone to provide helpful and friendly counsel regarding ethical interpretations. They do not need to be taught ethics, but they do need to have what they have so laboriously learned properly interpreted to them as they are brought face to face with the extraordinary task of contacting with so many that is new.
So much that is new. All
so
right.
much that
so
is
they
new.
keep us on track, right? As we learn all these new beings and skills that kind of help us negotiate our way through it. All right, Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. I see a word coming up. How do you pronounce that?
Which what the interpreters of ethics?
Inestimable. Okay, the interpreters of ethics are of inestimable.
Isn't that the word inestimable?
You got it right, Jane. Inestimable
Jane.
is what it is.
Yeah.
The interpreters of ethics are of inestimable assistance
right.
to the paradise arrivals in helping them to adjust to numerous groups of majestic beings during that eventful period extending from the attainment of residential status to formal induction into the core of mortal finalators. Many of the numerous types of paradise citizens, the ascendant pilgrims, have already met on the 7 circuits of Havana. The glorified mortals have also enjoyed intimate contact with the creature trinitized sons of the conjoint core of the inner Havana circuit, where these beings are receiving much of their education. And on the other circuits, the ascending pilgrims have met numerous unrevealed residents of the Paradise Havana system, who are there pursuing group training in preparation for the unrevealed assignments of the future.
So you can see with so many different types of beings and so many different types of backgrounds that these interpreters of ethics come in real handy to keep us on track, right?
We could use some here.
Yeah, we could really use some here. All right, so let's keep going. We got one more paragraph here, and Pam, I'm not going to make you read another one. I'm going to make Gary read this last one for us.
Okay. All these celestial companionships are invariably mutual. As ascending mortals, you not only derive benefit from these successive universe companions and such numerous orders of increasing divine associates, but you also impart to each of these fraternal beings something from your own personality and existence, which forever makes every one of them different and better for having such associated with an ascending mortal from the evolutionary worlds of time and space.
So believe it.
So we're appreciated.
Yeah, believe it or not, we give something back to them too. Right. It's hard to imagine, you know.
Well, we'll have a lot by the time we get there, I would think.
We do.
I already think we have a lot in our little life here.
Yeah, we do.
We tell stories forever.
That's right. And you think about think how much we benefit from each other when we share stories with each other and experiences and stuff like that. You know, it makes life so much more interesting. You know.
Hey, I had a question, Roger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they say the inner Havona circuit, would that be the first one?
Yes.
And then where they say the Paradise Havona circuit, that's just what exactly again? The Paradise Havona circuit?
The Paradise Havona circuit, what they're talking about there is the circuit of both Paradise and Havona together. But remember, there's also the planets that are in between Havona and Paradise, right? That's part of the circuit too.
Okay.
Right. The 7 satellites of God the Father, God the Son, and then 7 satellites of God the Spirit.
Do the super universes also include that, or just
no? That's
okay.
That's just Paradise and Havona, right?
Okay, thank you.
And the satellites.
Okay.
All right. So next time we'll hit directors of conduct, right? Gosh, we almost exactly are going to end on 7 o'clock too. That's pretty good. All right. Let's have a little prayer and then we'll close for tonight. Pam, would you like to close us tonight?
Oh, okay. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this revelation and the sharing, and for Dr. Roger Paul's incredible input. We are very thankful, and I just hope that each of us can be inspired to share in whatever way that we can and broadcast this information and make it available to others. We ask this in the name of Christ Michael.
Amen.
Amen. And thank you all at home for joining us.
Thank
Please
you.
come see us again. Everybody who's watching video, let me stop the live feed first.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, stop the recording.